Welcome to the Early Edge College Football Pick Show, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. I'm your host, Eric Cohen, and we are on to Week 13, where there are three ranked versus ranked matchups, including a battle of top five teams that we will discuss in the next segment. But so much to talk about, and there's no time to waste. As always, here are the stars of the show. The master of the first quarter underdog who hit again last week, it's M squared, Mike McClure. Our next expert, who I nicknamed the master of the outright upset, it's Emory Hunt. And finally, from the Cover 3 podcast, he's never shy with his opinion. It is the great Chip Patterson. All right, gentlemen, let us start with storylines. And Mike, I'm going to start with you. Which team is, or which conference is the better value to win the college football playoff? The SEC at minus 115 or the Big Ten at plus 110?
I'm going to go with the SEC here, roll with the SEC bias. I just think they're going to get a number of good teams in this situation. And you look at the rules, you're going to have a number of those teams not be favored or not be, in spots where they're favored on the bracket. And I think that's what's key here. I think they're going to be in advantageous spots overall. So when I look at this spot here, I think it's really the SEC. I know that you've got Ohio State and Oregon really strong in the Big Ten. I don't think Indiana's a threat. I don't even think they're going to be in the college football playoff. So when I look at this particular spot, I think it's the SEC.
Mine is also the Southeastern Conference, but this is a very recent development for me that has tipped the scales. Because while we haven't seen the point spread move a lot, we've seen the total drop a little. To me, Ohio State losing starting center Seth McLaughlin for the year with an Achilles injury, their third major offensive line injury that they've had in terms of the group right now, the fourth major change that they've had to make to that offensive line this season, that makes me hesitant towards backing Ohio State. No, I call it my starting five. I'm trying to figure out who the five teams are that I'm going to take and say I could see one of these teams winning the national championship. I had Ohio State and Oregon on my starting five. I am taking Ohio State off. I think that those injuries on the offensive line would prevent the Buckeyes from winning consecutive games against the best teams in the country, especially when so many of those playoff teams have excellent defensive lines. So Ohio State's injury issues in the trenches, the deal breaker for me that had me leaning SEC.
Listen, I'm going to go Big Ten. And the reason why is because when you look at the quarterbacks in the Big Ten, they're better than the SEC quarterbacks, sans Jalen Milroe. But with Milroe in Alabama, you don't know which Bama team you're going to get. At least we know with Ohio State, we have the defensive line, tremendous pass rushers. We have the secondary. We have great receivers. We know with Oregon, probably the most complete team on both sides of the ball, and they have the better quarterback. And at least with Ole Miss, you have Quinshon Judkins. I mean, wait. He plays for Ohio State now. They have both the backs. Penn State has good backs, good defense, a good quarterback. If you're telling me I have to choose between the Big Ten and the narrative of the SEC, oh my God, take the SEC 10 times out of 10. But if this is about football, this year, the Big Ten, pound for pound, has the better talent because for the most part, they have better quarterback play.
Emory, you're already coming out hot, and we're not even onto our second question. Chip, next man up. Come on. I understand McLaughlin's a big deal. Next man up. But Mike, I got to ask you, you said Indiana is not going to make the playoff, potentially at 11-1. Are you standing by that?
Absolutely. Yeah, they get blown out by 3 scores this week. They're out, which is back to your question. I think Penn State has zero chance of winning the national title against good teams having to win consecutive games. That's why I went SEC, because there's only 2 teams from the Big Ten in the dance, in my opinion, Ohio State and Oregon. SEC, I think we have 4, and I think those 4 all could be of that caliber.
Fair enough. Let's go to number 2 here. Speaking of the SEC, let's talk about South Carolina, as they're the highest ranked 3-loss team. They're plus 3,000, so 30-1 to make the college football playoff. Is there any scenario in which they can make the CFP? Emory, start with you.
No, we've reached good loss season. When we saw the pile up who lost good. Like, no, man, you got to keep winning. That's the whole point of it. If you are a good team, you keep winning. You don't lose. Good teams don't find a way to lose, right? And that's why we have a cutoff mark for these teams that are going to be in the postseason. So as good as South Carolina is playing, they should have won those games against LSU and other teams that they lost to, because at the end of the day, they would probably give a better, the SEC, in my opinion, a better chance to go through coast to coast than some of the teams that we're going to put in the college football playoffs from that conference.
Yeah, that's going to be a no for me, dog. So I'm looking at South Carolina, and I am seeing a team that I think is very feisty, a team that I am excited to see how they compete in Death Valley against Clemson in a rivalry that means so much to those programs. But do I see a college football playoff team? No, I do not see a college football playoff team. 11-1 Indiana with a margin of whatever you want is going to make the college football playoff before South Carolina does. There are too many teams in the way. There are Big 12 teams in the way. There are ACC teams in the way. Notre Dame is still very much in the picture. I just see too many teams that South Carolina would have to jump ahead of and not enough games left on the schedule.
Yeah, look, it's a clear no. You can add another zero, maybe two more zeros behind it, and I would still elect for my favorite 501c3 organization to make that donation. There's no shot that this team gets in. Again, first of all, they're going to lose to Clemson, but second of all, there's no way any 3-loss team gets in unless it's the loser of the SEC title game, and that's not going to be South Carolina.
Oh man, Mike, you are hard set on this one, but I have a scenario for you guys. Just play along with me here. We got South Carolina winning out, including over Clemson. Notre Dame beats Army this week. They knock them out. The Big 12, let's say BYU wins out and wins the Big 12 with 1 loss. Colorado and ASU have 3 losses. Miami loses to Syracuse in the final week, and SMU, they have 3 losses. A&M loses to Texas next week. They have 3 losses. And then 2 of these 4 happen. Florida over Ole Miss, Vandy over Tennessee, Auburn over Alabama, Georgia Tech over Georgia. Not likely, but the way I asked it, was there any scenario? If this happens, tell me, Chip, how does South Carolina not get in this scenario?
I think it's that very last 2 that you've got right there. It's the scenario that comes up, 404 system error. That's what I'm going to call this scenario. I always like to name my scenarios. This one is a take out the cartridge and blow on it and put it back in. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have necessarily the right fix for this. I think, EC, I might need to unplug you and plug you back in. I think that's what we got right now, because when you got Alabama losing to this Auburn team, which might not be a bowl team, and when you've got Georgia losing to Georgia Tech, given the way that series has been under Kirby Smart, if that's what it's going to take, well, then, I mean, we're talking about something biblical out here.
And listen, if that happens, I would say Colorado, BYU, and Tulane gets in before South Carolina.
Yeah.
Come on, Emory. No, we're not going with that. A 3-loss South Carolina from the SEC will get in over a 3-loss Colorado. All right, number 3 here. Which team would be more deserving of a first-round college football playoff bye? The Big 12 champion or a 1-loss Boise State or undefeated Army team? Chip, we'll start with you.
Whoever's ranked higher. I mean, here. So the way that the college football playoff works is that you come up with the rankings, and then you look in the rankings and you find the top 4 conference champions, and those teams get a first-round bye. So as you are trying to dissect the resumes of these 2 teams, your undefeated Army and your 1-loss Boise State, what is your statistical profile? What is your strength of schedule? What are your wins? I tell you what, the undefeated Army is very interesting, because that would give an opportunity for Army to actually get in this conversation. Right now, Army has one of the worst strength of schedules in the entire country, and so that's why you see them getting straight up disrespected by the committee and buried behind so many of these other teams. What would a head-to-head win against Notre Dame do in terms of vaulting them up in the rankings? Obviously, right now, we see that Boise State has an opportunity, not because of Boise State being in that little bye spot right now. The opportunity for Boise State that was revealed on Tuesday night was UNLV creeping up into that top 25. So you need the Rebels to be able to be a top 25 team in that Mountain West title game. But here comes Colorado State to mess things up, because I'll tell you what Boise State is not helped with is by beating a Colorado State team that is not up in the top 25. You're throwing all these scenarios at me, EC. I feel like you aren't even checking the conference standings first. Come on.
You're right. You need UNLV there. You really need Army to beat Notre Dame. But for me, it's going to be Big 12 champion. And I ultimately think it's going to be Colorado who's going to win out. And when you do that, they're going to be not only ranked higher than those teams, they're going to have the strength of schedule at that point, because part of the Big 12, while they're not a great conference overall, they're really log jammed in that rankings between, say, 20 and 45 in college football. And ultimately, I think that strength of schedule is enough. So for me, it will be the Big 12 champion.
Yeah, the higher ranked team, that's an easy answer. But to Chip's point, if Army beats Notre Dame and then comes back the following week and beats a ranked Tulane team, they're probably going to be ranked high. However, if Colorado continues to win and then outwins the Big 12 championship game, we know at the end of the day, this is a TV product. So Colorado will probably be ranked higher. But man, you could have a situation where you get both Army, Colorado, and Boise State in the college football playoff, which would be great because it would be like every other playoff that we have in college football.
In my opinion, if Boise State wins out with one loss to the number one team by 3 points on the last play of the game, no Big 12 team is passing them. So I think Boise State is in a good spot there. All right, make sure to sign up. If you're not a SportsLine member right now, what are you doing? Make sure to sign up using promo code WINNERS. For 60% off an annual plan that's cheaper than anything you will find on the site this week. And by the way, we just got a SportsLine Discord server that launched last week, and you are going to want to be a part of that. Expert chats and sharing picks among members, giving and receiving. It's great. So check that out. Sportsline.com. Use promo code WINNERS for 60% off an annual plan. Coming up next, it's a battle of top 5 teams in Columbus. Is Indiana for real, or are they about to be exposed this week? We'll make our Week 13 selections here on the Early Edge College Football Pick Show. Welcome back to the Early Edge, and it's Buckeyes against Hoosiers. Just the top 5 matchup we all predicted in August. Can Indiana all but clinch a spot in the Big Ten championship game with a win? All right, this is going to be interesting. On the road in the Horseshoe, Indiana is getting 12.5 points. But Chip, you aren't going to make a pick on a side or a total on this game for the entire game. You're going to give us a quarter play. What is it?
Because I'm giving you my best bet. But if you want the full treasure map, I'll tell you, I also like Indiana full game. I also like the under. I think that Indiana ain't scared of nobody. And I'll tell you what Indiana is, the best fourth quarter team in America. And you're going to give the best fourth quarter team in America a +2.5? I will take all of that. So let's imagine the scenario. Okay, so maybe Ohio State is up. You know, they're just going to try to run the ball and milk that clock out. So all we need from Indiana is just to keep that thing 0-0. That's a win. Maybe it's 7-7 in the fourth quarter. That's a win. Or maybe Indiana is trying to overcome a deficit. Indiana outscores Ohio State in the fourth quarter. That's a win as well. Nobody else in the country on both offense and defense has done a better job of playing all the way through to the very end of football games than Curt Cignetti's Hoosiers. And in the biggest game of their season, I do not expect that to change. We got a lot of ways to win, so I am with Coach Sig. Rip him through the filter.
Well played there, Chip. I'm laying these points with taking Indiana in the points here. Here's the reason why, man. It just frustrates me so much because I am such a historian of college football. A lot of folks feel like college football just started in 2010. We watched the 95 Northwestern team go through the Big Ten, and this is Northwestern that was just, it would be as if Vanderbilt ran through the SEC and went to the Sugar Bowl at the time, which would have been the tie-in to the SEC. Northwestern ran through 3 ranked Big Ten teams en route to winning the Big Ten and going to the Rose Bowl. So anything can happen, which is why it frustrates me that we see the disrespect for Indiana to go out there and win these games as if going undefeated is easy. Take Indiana in the points. The Hoosiers have the better quarterback in the situation, and they're playing with house money. Nobody expects us to be here anyway. No one cares that we are showing up. They think we can't win. That is all the momentum for the Hoosiers here. I think this will be a very good game. I will even sprinkle some on the money line as well.
Let's go. Wow, I am definitely on the other side here. I like Ohio State. I still make Ohio State the best team in college football. And Indiana, look, they're a good team. I don't have them anywhere near the top 10. I have them 15th in terms of overall power rating. If we're talking not on record, but just on actual simulation here, I have this team around 15th. And that puts me at a number that's 11 on a neutral site. So this game to me is priced way more like if it were like essentially the Big Ten title game at a true neutral. To me, there is a big home field advantage in this particular matchup, especially considering the circumstances of this game. So I like Ohio State here. And the reason why is I know you can only play who they line up across from you. I need to see it out of Indiana in a real big spot because frankly, they were not impressive at all against a pretty weak Michigan team that I want to be good, that is just simply not good. When I look at Ohio State, it's the defensive line that tells the story in this game. I think they're going to be able to get some pressure, and I've seen Indiana start slow a number of times. On this very show, we've talked about betting against them in first quarters often. This is the wrong matchup to start slow in my opinion, particularly on the road. So I made the number 17 in this one. I love Ohio State here.
Emory, I got a stat for you. You talked about sprinkling Indiana on the money line. So a top 5 team has been listed as a double-digit underdog 14 times since 2014. They're 0-14 straight up and 5-9 against the spread. The last outright winner of a double-digit top 5 underdog was the kick 6 Auburn against Alabama in 2013. That's not happening this week. Give me the Buckeyes big. I think Ohio State wins something along the lines of 38-17. That number 1 scoring defense for Ohio State, the home field advantage, next man up mentality on the offensive line. Buckeyes roll. All right, let's talk about Minnesota and Penn State. Mike, you are anti-Penn State. We heard it earlier. Yeah, but wait a second. Minnesota at home getting 11.5 points. That means you should like Minnesota this week, right? In a way?
Yeah, definitely not. I don't like Minnesota either. I went under 16.5 on their team total. I think 17 is a big ask. Penn State, they're in a spot where they just simply have to keep winning football games, and they will. But let's not kid ourselves. Minnesota, even on the road, is nowhere near the caliber of teams that I'm talking about them being up against in a college football playoff. I think Penn State is a great football team overall. They just aren't built to win those games against Ohio State, Oregon, Ole Miss, Alabama, Georgia. Like I would not take Penn State in any of those matchups. These are the matchups that they control and win, and that's what they're going to do here. But I'm going under 16.5. I don't think we see Minnesota put up 17 points here.
Yeah, I love that. I'm sort of along with you, but I'm going to be taking the full game under. Some of this is going to be game script for me because Minnesota wants to play a slow, low possession game. And that's how you try to give yourself the best chance for a home upset. You hope that it's tight in the fourth quarter. So they are going to be playing a lot of ball control. They're going to be trying to wear down a Penn State defense that does have an enormous edge. Probably the best unit on the field here is Penn State's defense. So I like Mike's play, the Minnesota team total. I also think that if you're Penn State, this is just going to be a bigger fish to fry Saturday. You want to get in and out with the win by any margin. You run the football with, I don't know, like 5 different players. I mean, because we got, Katron Allen, you got Nick Singleton, Tyler Warren's going to run it a little bit. Drew Aller might run it. Pribula might run it too. I mean, they're basically a glorified option team right now without any kind of threatening downfield pass attack. I think they ride the defense, the run game, the clock ticks, and we get the under.
I love how EC read off all those numbers and stats as if we didn't sit here in Mike Tyson's year of 2024 and watch Vanderbilt beat Alabama. Like, none of that matters, man, when you get out there and plays. But for this particular game, no one thrives in such a big spot that's under the radar, that's not a spotlight game than Penn State. Penn State will blow the doors off Minnesota here. So lay these points with Penn State. The Nittany Lions have the offense, have the defense, and they have the benefit of not playing in front of everybody, so they can do what they want to do and just continue to fly under the radar and sneak into the postseason without playing in the Big Ten championship game.
All right, I got a stat for you, Emory. I know you love these. Penn State 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 against top 25 scoring defenses. Minnesota is 17th. I'm buying into it. Now, I think Minnesota's not going to win this game, but they've only lost once this season by more than a touchdown. I think they keep this one very, very close. Penn State 24, Minnesota 20. I'm taking that plus 11.5 at home. Penn State, do they get caught looking ahead? Are they already thinking about the college football playoff? Minnesota could come up and bite him here. All right, we're not done with the Week 13 top matchups. Notre Dame's been dominant since their loss to Northern Illinois. but they haven't faced a team like undefeated Army. What will happen at Yankee Stadium? Find out next on The Early Edge. Back on The Early Edge, and let's start with a likely semifinal matchup in the Big 12 race. This one's painful to me. We all pegged BYU and Arizona State to be ranked in late November, right? Not so much. This one hurts. I mean, as a Wildcat, I look at ASU doing so well. All right, Emory, who you got? Arizona State 3-point favorite at home against number 14 BYU. Please tell me something good that's going to warm my heart.
And the Big 12 is playing competitive football and involves, the Sun Devils. How about that? You talk about BYU, and earlier in the year, it was like, okay, they're undefeated. They keep winning. But it was just insane that they were at some point the 6th team in the country. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. And I'm all for rewarding wins. And I understand wins are hard to come by. But when you watch these games, like, bro, these things are very shaky. Credit to them for finding a way to make a way, but they probably should have 3 losses already. And this will be another one for them because I like Arizona State in here because they're playing really good football at the right time of the season.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I like Arizona State. And look, it's another week in the Big 12. Every single game is basically the home team favored by 3 because there's just a log jam in this conference. I was actually just looking at my rankings here. I have Colorado as the best team in the Big 12 at 16th, but I've got 8 Big 12 teams between 16 and 41. That is where this conference is at right now. BYU, I make them the 29th team in the country. Arizona State, the 2nd best team in the Big 12 for me behind Colorado right now. I think they grab this win, and it wouldn't shock me if it's a double-digit win. It wouldn't shock me at all if BYU, just the wheels completely fall off at this point after having such great luck in one-score games. I like Arizona State here.
Ooh, let's dance on that alt line then. And a UNITY. Arizona State has the better quarterback. Check. Arizona State has the best overall offensive player. Cam Scatterboo. Check. Arizona State, to Mike's point, is playing some of its best football right now. And if you really want to bang your head against the wall, EC, if they had anything close to an average, like FBS average kicking situation, they would be 9-1 right now because of that loss to Cincinnati where they missed 1 billion short field goals. So yeah, Arizona State is moving in the right direction. They're playing better football right now. And I do think we've got a real case of don't let one loss become 2. I think it does for BYU.
All right, so Chip, when you do that Unity song, it's like Ophir. So maybe that's a good thing here. But this is a perfect EC Island spot that I'm not taking. I'm going with the over 48.5. Just can't bring myself to take Arizona State, who I think will win the game. But I can't do it. I don't want to agree with all of you. We haven't done it all season, not doing it here. Both teams are averaging more than 30 points a game this season. ASU has scored at least 27 in each home game this year, and BYU's last 4 games have gone over. This one is going to see points, ASU 35. BYU 31. All right, we talked a lot about Colorado already. Let's talk about them again. Number 16, Colorado, is a 2.5-point favorite over Kansas at Arrowhead Stadium. Now, Chip, I already know which way Emory's going to go, but we're going to have you start us off. Which direction are you leaning?
Well, I mean, this is something that you should like. I mean, I know you're always looking at the trends. How about Colorado being one of the best against the spread teams in the entire country? Top 10, not only in your win percentage against the spread, but also in your cover margin. How many points per game are you covering the spread? 7th in the country. And this is a Colorado team that you already know is going to get that big backing, because they are so popular, because they are such a piece of the college football commonplace. They already are getting a bunch of public love and still going and covering those numbers. I love being able to get this at under a field goal. I will lay these points with the Buffs.
Yeah, I'm laying these points as well. I find it fascinating when folks talk about Kansas and potentially upsetting Colorado. They always say, well, Jalen Daniels is protecting the football now. To me, that sounds a lot like hope and cope. You're hoping he protects the football, which tells you that it's not consistent, so you can't depend on that. What we can depend on is this Colorado run defense. So let's say their run defense, which has been solid all season long, to be quite honest, takes away Neal, the outstanding tailback, the NFL player in the backfield for Kansas, now it becomes a Shedeur Sanders versus Jalen Daniels game. I think we know where we can lean on that one. And the best matchup, I feel like, is that Kansas secondary. Mello, Dotson, Kobe Bryant, outstanding NFL corners going up against a trio of Colorado wide receivers, not included Travis Hunter. So that's the X factor there. They have three good receivers, 4 if you count Hunter, the Heisman Trophy finalist and favorite. And Colorado understands the situation. They've been battle tested. Everyone is waiting for them to lose. They understand the gravity of the situation. Kansas doesn't in this juncture. So I'm going with Colorado to win big over the Jayhawks.
I like Colorado to win the game, and I'll be the first to say I was not super high on them this year. Been very, very impressed the way they have strung wins together in the manner that they have. And as Emory mentioned, I think they're just absolutely locked in right now. I think they understand this situation. As far as Kansas, they're still going to try to run the football a little bit. For me, it's just a key number here. Under 28.5 on the team total. The fact that I can cash this with 4 touchdowns still from Kansas, I think that's an attractive look here because I personally think Colorado is going to be out to a lead. And when you get in that situation, I don't think Kansas is going to be kicking field goals in the second half of this game. I think it's touchdown or nothing in those particular situations. So when I look at Colorado here, I think that they are just, again, locked in. They cruise to a victory, and Kansas fails to reach 30 points.
Mike, I see what you did there. You're not giving me that island spot here, and that's okay. I'm still taking Kansas on the money line at plus 115. Jayhawks are playing to stay bowl eligible. Of their 6 losses, 5 are by 6 points or less. This game's going to be close, I think, one way or the other. But this is the 4th straight ranked team that they faced, and they're 3-0 against the spread. So everything you say about Colorado, by the way, they played one ranked team this year. It was M-Squared's Kansas State team, and they lost by a field goal. Are they really that battle-tested? Are we going to go Indiana strength of schedule? I'm saying. And by the way, when Kansas wins this game 34-30, is that the end of Deion at Colorado? Should he go to the Dallas Cowboys or somewhere in the NFL? Emory, you're giving me a look here. Is this bye-bye Deion?
You are like wilding right now. I don't know what the temperature is out there where you at, man, but it is clearly affecting your thought process. There's no way.
Hey, listen,
this man has clear. Oh, go ahead, Chip. But he's clear to say he's not going to the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that we need to get a guest to come and speak to EC right now.
Oh, no. I read through that bull junk you wrote down. I read through that. I sifted through all that.
That bull junk. All right, you're trying to stir up rumors right now, okay? You're trying to go viral off Colorado's backs. Despicable behavior.
Guilty as charged. And we'll move along to another one of Emory's favorite teams. It is number 19 Army against number 6 Notre Dame at Yankee Stadium. Now, Notre Dame is giving 14.5 points. Saturday, 7 o'clock Eastern. Mike, you're not giving us a side in this game. You are giving us a first half lean. Which way is it?
I like the under 23.5 in the first half here. When you look at what this game lines up as, first of all, we've seen Army time and time again use essentially half or closer to full quarter on a particular drive. And I think that that's certainly going to be the game plan until they have to abandon it if they're behind. And if you're Notre Dame, I think they're going to come out and still try and establish dominance on the line of scrimmage and run that football. So it's also a unique environment. We're talking about neutral site at Yankee Stadium. The sight lines are different. Everything's different in those kind of environments. To me, it just sets up is big on big. We play in the trenches early. And I think that this could be a situation where you see a drive or two stall, end in a field goal, potentially a fumble. I'm not saying it's going to be just like the Notre Dame Navy kind of game, but we could see struggles like that. So I like the under here at 23.5 in the first half.
Give me Army plus the points here. This will be a very close game. The Black Knights understand the situation, the scenario. They understand that everyone is waiting for them to lose. Same thing as I said about Colorado. What folks are doing, and it's a bad disservice to Army, is they're using Navy's loss against Army, but not realizing, because again, people just ignore history. That's why they are destined to repeat it. If you go back and look at Navy's game against Memphis, how they were blowing Memphis out, and then Memphis came storming back, turnovers. Also, defense just wasn't as good. Army's defense is outstanding, not just good, outstanding. Army does not turn the ball over, so they are a better football team, and their option is a little bit different than Navy's option. And yes, Notre Dame had that loss against Northern Illinois, a team that just was foundationally about running the football, playing good defense, efficient football. They're going to get that in Army. So, yes, they have a sense of what Army is going to be like, but they don't know what Army is going to be like until you face Army. So this game will be a lot closer. Plus, this is Army's first conference championship game, and then they have another one against Tulane. Then they have a third against Navy. So they understand this is a big moment for them. This is essentially a play-in game for them. I think this will be a lot closer. Again, sprinkle some on the money line.
Ooh, that would be big. Look, I do not want to disrespect history. I want to make sure that history is well represented on this fine program. So that is why it's important to point out the year 1958. That's the last time Army beat Notre Dame, was 1958. We got 15 straight wins for the Fighting Irish. Now, to be fair to that statistic, we are talking about 2016 as the last time that these two teams have played. So not exactly anything that we can grab a hold of in terms of the changes in coaching, the changes in styles that have happened since then. But the thing that I'm lingering on is not a distrust of Army, because I really love what Jeff Monken has done with this team. It is really my belief in Notre Dame. I have been very impressed at the relentless approach that Notre Dame has taken ever since that loss. You know, I've been on here on some Notre Dame team totals. We've seen Notre Dame cover some spreads. I mean, if you didn't just take a couple touchdowns off the board because of penalties last week, we might have had another 50 burger with the Fighting Irish going up against Virginia. I just think there's an aggressiveness where Marcus Freeman is not calling off the dogs. Even backup quarterback Steve Angeli is throwing it down the field for 15-yard gains to keep drives alive. There's just an edge to this group that gives me a little bit more confidence in them being able to close it out. I don't see a blowout, but I do have confidence in Notre Dame covering the spread.
God bless America, and thank you to the brave student athletes in the armed services. With that said, who the heck has Army played this year? The answer, nobody. By the way, since 2010, in ranked versus ranked matchups, when the line is 14 points or more, the favorite covers 60% of the time. Notre Dame in their last 5 against ranked teams, 5-0 straight up and against the spread. And by the way, since they were written off after week 2, Notre Dame has scored 31 or more points in 7 of their last 8. They're going to do it again. Sorry, Army. Notre Dame 35, Army 14. It just is what it is. It's a great college football game, though. I'm looking forward to watching it. All right. We've gone through the top games, but now it is time to see our Week 13 best bets. My favorite segment of the show is coming up next. It is time for our best bets here on the Early Edge. And if you're following us this year, we're combined 55-41 within this segment. Look at Emory's 10 games above 500. Mike, 4 games above 500. I'm just treading at 500. And Chip is going to get back to 500 this week. So let's start it off. Emory normally gives us some picks against the spread. This week, he's doing it a little bit different with some off-the-radar games. Where are you starting us this week?
Let's start in the tough physical grind of the SEC as Georgia, one of the underrated best 2-loss teams in the country, are taking on UMass. So with all of that being the backdrop, you know what I'm saying? I know the point spread is huge, but what I love about Kirby Smart is that he treats this game as an extended practice. So he's going to put his starters out there. They're going to get good work. They're going to build a good lead. And he's going to put his reserves in there, and they're going to get some good work, and they're going to probably just sustain. He's going to punt on 4th and short. He's not going to try to rub it in the noses of his opponent, knowing that he's far superior than UMass, even though UMass will put up a little bit of a fight because Don Brown got fired. So, and they've been competitive, to be honest, this season. So I can see this one going under 55.5 points.
I'm going to look at Ohio State here. Speaking about building a big lead with that starting unit, I think Ohio State builds a big lead in this one. I think the home field advantage is being discounted here in this particular matchup. When I look at this spot for Ohio State, I just think they're the complete team. We've seen them in excellent matchups. We watched them win a game on the road at Penn State. We watched them almost win a game and play a very tight game in difficult conditions against Oregon early in the season. To me, there are just so many things you have to contend with. It's whether it's the two running backs in the backfield, the passing game, Will Howard when it comes to having to run the football, but it's that defensive line to me. I think that Indiana is going to struggle with the defensive line. They're a team that has started slow a number of times this season. And again, to me, this is priced like a neutral site Big Ten title game. It is not priced like a true road game in a must-win spot for Ohio State because they already have the loss on the schedule. So I like this particular spot a lot for them. I think it should be north of 14. Give me Ohio State minus 12.5.
I'm going to lay a real big number, but a key one with the Texas Longhorns at home finale, Kentucky coming to town. I'm not sure how many points Kentucky is going to score in this game because as we've been trying to pin down Texas, you're picking apart the resume. I want to talk about the football side of this because what is Texas's identity? Their identity starts on the defensive side of the football, and then Quinn Ewers is able to, even in sluggish starts, build up a game. That Florida game on November 9th was a perfect example where Ewers wasn't awesome coming out of the gate, but as he got more and more possessions, thanks to that Texas defense, he was able to finally get things rolling. And when Steve Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers, they get into their bag, they get the defense on their heels, and they catch you off guard with one of those explosive plays because they've got your alignment off. And I think that's what we could have here against Kentucky. Don't hate a Kentucky team total under as well. Lots of different ways that I think we could cash this, but ultimately, I do see Texas being able to win this game by 21 points or more.
And I think I read, Chip, that this is the furthest west Kentucky's ever played for a regular season game, which is wild, in Austin, Texas. I can't even believe that. Speaking of Texas, I'm going Baylor minus 7.5 at Houston. I saw Houston play in person last week. Their offense looked like a high school offense. It was dreadful. 5 of their 6 losses this year by 20 or more points. Baylor has won and covered in 4 straight, and they're averaging 46 points per game. After what I saw from Houston, it was so horrible against my alma mater, Arizona. I can't pick them here. Baylor 41, Houston 17. All right, Emory, we're going back around to you. This isn't the SEC, but it's close enough. Another team with a really tough opponent this week in the Southeast.
Yeah, Clemson's taking on the Citadel. Now, remember, everything that I just said about Kirby Smart does not apply to Dabo Swinney because he will try to blow you out and be humble about it, too, in the post-game presser. So in this game, because Dabo understands it's all about style points. And yes, Clemson has done a great job just being explosive on offense. They find ways to generate those big plays. The Citadel is not a good FCS team this season, and they will score probably 13 or whatnot, but expect 50-plus points to come from Clemson's side. So in this game of humble coaching, I do like the over to hit with Clemson and the Citadel.
I'm going to keep it right there in the ACC. I am looking at maybe a sleepy noon start for Miami coming out of an off week. I know that you want to think that Mario Cristobal spent all that time getting into his players after the loss, getting them refocused, but human nature might just take over, and you're just supposed to beat Wake Forest by a bunch. I could see that offense being a little bit slow to get going. And I think that for Wake Forest, while they are at their best a team that can hang with more talented ACC teams, offensively, they have not been at their best this season. 64.5 is a huge number to get to if you think that Miami can control this game, which I think they can. So give me the under 64.5 in Miami Wake Forest.
I'm headed to the West Coast. We're going to talk USC, UCLA. I like USC here, minus 4.5. I think this game should be a full touchdown. I know UCLA has really turned it on a bit of late, but this is not a great matchup. First of all, I love the quarterback move to Jaden Maeva. I think he's going to throw the football a ton in this matchup. And if you look at where UCLA is still vulnerable, it's definitely going to be in pass coverage in the secondary. That's where I think the difference in this game is. Both teams are going to be able to sling the ball around. I think USC will come up with the stop that is necessary, likely mid-third quarter, and really pull away in this game. But I think USC is a team that's not properly rated right now because of the quarterback change. I think Maeva is going to have a ton of success here in this offense overall. So I think this number, again, should be -7. So give me USC minus 4.5.
You know, I love to say, Mike, that sometimes teams like to play high-scoring games against one another, and that's what we have in this rivalry. in each game between 2011 and 2023, there have been 49 or more points. It's just the way it is. Since 2019, there's an average of 83 points a game in those 5 games. USC's been awful on the road. You like them, so I kind of feel better about this. Now, my score, I would adjust after hearing your pick. Give me USC 34, UCLA 30. High-scoring game there, late-night special. All right, let's recap them here. Emory's on the Georgia UMass under 55.5 and the Clemson Citadel over 58.5. Mike is on Ohio State minus 12.5 and USC minus 4.5. Chip has Texas minus 20.5 and the under in Miami Wake Forest, that is 64.5. I'm going Baylor minus 7.5 at Houston and the USC UCLA over 51.5. All right, which Week 13 favorites are on upset alert? Find out next here on the Early Edge. Welcome back to the Early Edge, and it's time for our Dogs of the Week. Now, we know Emory's up 12 units this year. Mike hit last week. He is now positive on the year with Tennessee in the first quarter against Georgia, and I hit Rutgers plus 185 at Maryland, so I'm up as well. Big week here. Mike's going to talk about it. The first team to break the... No, wait, it's first quarter line. What am I talking about? All right, Mike, who you got this week?
How about Northwestern plus 230 against Michigan? Michigan's been obviously disappointing this season. They don't score a ton of points. And you look at the style of play here. Northwestern, while they're not a great team either, obviously, they held Ohio State scoreless in the first quarter in their last game, which was played at Wrigley Field. We know that they've had kind of a fluid situation all season in terms of their stadium. So they're very comfortable in some of these environments. And I have to say, it is a tough environment overall, but it's not as tough as it would be if Michigan were playing really good football right now. So when I look at this particular matchup, I think there's definitely a path to where Michigan doesn't score in the first quarter or lands with just a field goal. And we're talking about a situation where Northwestern could be leading this football game after the first quarter. So give me Northwestern first quarter money line plus 230.
UConn is showing you that if you build it right, no matter where you are, you can have some success. I hope UMass is paying close attention to what Jim Mora has done at UConn. And this is not even a good matchup in basketball this year. Like, UConn is not that good. So, in my opinion. But I will say this. They will beat Syracuse in football because when you look at what they've done really well, they've done a great job on defense. They don't turn the ball over. They're playing efficient football. The minimal mistakes they make is the reason why I can trust them more so than Syracuse. So I like UConn to win this one outright.
Guys, I'm really concerned about Ole Miss's hands, the hands of the Ole Miss players, because they've just been getting a lot of high fives. Like everywhere they've been going on campus, they've been getting high fives. Last time we saw Ole Miss, they were beating Georgia, rushing the field, biggest win in home history. So many high fives. Whole week to get high fives. Watch out for Florida. I'll take the Gators plus 300.
I'm going with an Emory special here somewhat. Ball State plus 340 against Bowling Green. Ball State's covered the spread as an underdog in each of their last 5 games. 7 of their last 8 games have been decided by 10 points or less, including a 10-point loss at Vandy last month. And their 6 MAC games have been decided by a combined 19 points. I don't care that they fired Coach Mike New last week. I'm going with Ball State plus 340 against Bowling Green. And if you want to play the plus 11.5, I am fine with that as well. All right, let's recap them here. We've got Mike is on Northwestern in the first quarter plus 230 against Michigan. Emory has UConn plus 280 over Syracuse. Chip has Florida plus 300 over Ole Miss. And I'm going with Ball State plus 340 against Bowling Green. I can't believe that the college football season is winding down. It has been so much fun. But thank you guys, as always. For Mike McClure, Chip Patterson, and Emory Hunt, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for watching the Early Edge College Football Pick Show. And as I always like to say, let's hit it big. Good luck.